This is what we've been waiting for Toyota Motor Philippines to finally have an EV. Actually, it's not Toyota Motor Philippines, it's Lexus Philippines that's coming up first with the RZ. Hey everyone, Vince here from AutoIndustriya, and yeah, it's been a while since I've done a full car review, but for this one, well, I kind of have to do it because this is the Lexus RZ. Like I said, it's the first electric vehicle from the Toyota Motor Philippines group, of which Lexus is part. Now, for many years, Lexus Philippines, Toyota Philippines, they've been doing hybrids and they've been doing it very well. But the technology in their hybrid system, well, it's already being surpassed by a lot of automakers out there that want to, I guess, supplant their supremacy when it comes to hybrid technologies. But when it comes to EVs, Toyota has kind of been lagging behind a lot of the other automakers all around the world. But recently, of course, Akio Toyoda, the new chairman of Toyota, they did announce that they're going to be launching lots of EVs, and this is one of them, the first one from the group to make it into the Philippines. It's very closely related to the Toyota BZ4X, which we do not yet have in our market, as well as the Subaru Solterra, which we also do not have in our market. So really, it's the first one out of that whole lineup. Now, when it comes to what the vehicle is, as you can see, it's a crossover, but it's a very sleekly designed crossover. If you look at it, it's not very upright. If anything, it's very, very steeply raked back. Even in the back, I'll show you in a bit. But when it comes to the look, you can see that it's got a very unique interpretation of the spindle grille, the way here. But what's different here is that it extends all the way up here. It looks very different. The way they did the lights, very striking with the black trim here. And being that it's an electric vehicle, the cooling demands aren't that high compared to internal combustion, so you don't need any huge radiator slats. They can keep it quite clean. But what's important though is that they really work to keep it clean, because if you look at it, even though it has all the safety features like the Lexus safety system, which has things like the radar cruise control, if you look at it, there's no rectangular radar thing. It's actually tucked in right behind here, which is the proper and neat way to do it. Now, if you saw this in the second Back to the Future movie, Hill Valley 2015, which is 8 years ago now, this would look perfectly in place, because look at it. It's very, very steeply raked, very pointy in the way they designed it. It just looks fantastic, depending, of course, on your taste in vehicles. Now, it does have the blacked out B, C, and D pillars, which is also steeply raked over there. The glass roof, I'll show you a neat trick with that later on. The gloss black fender flares, which integrate nicely with the side skirt, and these rather large 20-inch wheels. And sadly, I think whoever drove it before me had a little bit of a gutter rash in the back, but still very sad. When it comes to charging, there's no fancy way to release the charging cap of the lid of this. You just press here, and there you go. It's a CCS2, and then you can pop open this if you want to do fast charging on if you have a DC charger and access to one, which is good. That's also something to keep in mind. When you do plug it into there, the battery, well, typical of any EV, when you pop open the door, by the way, it's a little button inside there. It's a grab handle, but you don't actually pull out the handle. You just press the button underneath. But if you look there, you'll spot a discrepancy between the bottom of the vehicle and the actual floor of the cabin. That is to make space for a battery pack. Now, that's what you normally get in any EV that is currently in the market now that I know of anyway. The battery packs are going to be underneath the floor. That's why you have space there for the battery pack. And the one on this one is, I think it's around 71 point something kilowatts. And the maximum driving range is 470, but more on that later. But still, let me know what you think of the design, because I think it's pretty cool. I think Lexus really did a good job with the rear of the RZ, because look at it. It looks like something out of, I don't know, Aston Martin, that kind of thing. It's very, very sleek. It's got this little bit of a ducktail kicked up like that, and then it's very raked down there, very cool. It does have this protrusion here that looks like a, I don't know, like a cat running fast kind of thing, like that kind of thing. It does remind me of another automaker. I'm not going to mention them right now, but still, it's a good looking rear. Now, when it comes to space, well, let me show you. You pop open the lift gate. It's motorized, of course, as expected. The space is actually quite respectable for an EV. It's about 37 inches long from there to there, 38 inches wide. It's a little bit more on the widest point. The height up to the tonneau cover right here is 17 inches. It is a bit limited because you do have the glass, which is very steeply rigged. If you fold down the rear seat, let me show you that now. If we fold that down, the cargo area goes up to 61 inches right up to here, which is pretty good for a vehicle like this. Underneath the floorboard, there is actually storage. Come on closer. If you go here, you notice there's a very deep recess which is used for storage of your mobile charger. Like right now, this mobile charger there, you can plug that into your home and then charge it up. It's gonna be slow, but it's really recommended to, if you wanna just plug it into your home, that'll work fine. Take a while. There's compartments underneath, tools here. Here on the side, you have a compartment for, I think it's tools and the puller and screwdriver, other stuff like that. On the right side, you have a compartment which is meant for, let me go around, pull out a bit. Yeah, there you go. If you go around here, and then there's a compartment under here which is meant for a tire repair kit. But if you notice, there's nothing in there. So how do you sort that out? Well, let me show you now, because this is not how it came out of the showroom. It actually came with this. No, that is not Captain America's mighty vibranium shield. That is a donut spare tire, which for some reason is not neatly integrated into the design of the body. We have to keep in mind that in many other countries, and even with a lot of EVs, spare tires are not expected. And that's because space is at a premium. Most of them come with a tire repair kit, like I showed you. It's supposed to have one. This one does not. They elected for a spare tire because I'm guessing, well, customers want a spare tire. But there is the drawback. So Lexus didn't account for a market like the Philippines really needing a spare tire, at least the customers wanting a spare tire. But couldn't they have made space for it somewhere else? Like, if not here in the back, maybe the front? Well, let me show you now. If you pop open the hood of the Lexus RZ and think that, hey, that's a nice engine, well, you'd be kind of forgiven because it does look like it has an engine in it, but it really doesn't. What you're actually looking at here, coming on closer, is actually the inverter for the battery system. Well, and of course, other electronics as well. You can tell by looking at all the orange going there. The charging, of course, happens here, goes there, then goes through the battery, and then powers the whole vehicle for your drive. What you're looking at, this big square unit there, is there's no pistons there, there's no nothing. It's just that electronics in there. The motor is actually not there as well. The motor is underneath, driving the front axle directly. Lexus calls it an E-axle, I think. Actually, there are two motors, one in front, one in the back, giving you all-wheel drive. And together, those combine for 313 PS of power. So the question here is, well, why did Lexus not try to re-engineer the way they do the engine bay or motor bay or power unit bay to generate space? And that is actually one important question that even we do not know the answer to. But still, there's no frunk. That means that spare tire will have to sit there in the back. But a couple of things we notice here. So fuses, also for an EV, it has a 12-volt battery as a backup. I can see the AC unit over there. ABS is probably somewhere there. There's a lot of piping. It's a pretty busy engine motor bay. But what's unique here is this thing, this strut bar. If you look up there on that cylinder, you'll see that it says by Yamaha. It's a performance damper. It's meant to be able to control the forces going in for the shock towers. As you know, strut bars, they're meant to keep the vehicle as rigid as possible. This one is meant to have a bit more give when it comes to driving around. And that is one of the things they tuned out when they were testing this over in Shimoyama. But still, let's get over the technical details so we can go inside and check out the interior. the back seat of the RZ, pretty nice. I mean, the floor almost flat, but it's pretty spacious down there. It's a very neat design. I got your lock, door lock, unlock here. And to open the door, you don't pull a handle, you press a button or a lever, and it just pops open electronically, just like from when you're opening it from the outside. You have a center armrest here, and it's got 2 cup holders, pretty normal stuff. This is adjustable for, I think, 2 or 3 positions. So this one is the more upright one. Very nice. 2 AC vents there for the back with seat heaters. I mean, I'm not sure what we're going to use seat heaters for, so yeah, keep that in mind. Also, you got 2 USB-C ports and 1 12-volt outlet. There is no USB, standard USB port in this vehicle, only USB-C. So keep that in mind when you buy one of these. Yeah, you're gonna have to use a USB-C cable. Seat back pockets, all pretty good stuff. But what we want to try out is what's in front, because I'm not gonna be sitting here and have someone drive for me. So here's the dashboard of the Lexus RZ, and in many ways it's actually very driver-centric, because I mean, you look at it, everything's canted towards you. I got the steering wheel here with your paddles, more on that when we drive it. Then you have double screens. So you have the screen here for your driver display with some indicators on either side. You can actually see the actual rectangular silhouette of the actual LCD or LED, whatever that screen is. And then you have here this very large 14-inch screen right in the middle of the dashboard. It's very nice, but again, it's huge. But more on that in a bit. But overall, the Lexus calls this, I think, the Tazuna concept for the interior. If anything, it does remind me of another car we drove in the past, and that is the Honda CRZ. In the way they did, this, it kind of brings that back to me. Anyways, but overall, everything feels driver-centric. Again, canted towards you. You have this, the controls for your windows and stuff on the left, and then you have your center console here, which is very nicely sculpted. It's not wood paneling in any way, but I like what they did with the gray. It's matte gray. Hopefully it's not, scratchy, easily scratched, because some of the things in here I did find to be scratched already, particularly the screen, like right over here. I think somebody wiped it with some grit on the rag. So yeah, there's some scratches there that I don't want to show you. But the controls, of course, steering wheel right here, it's got buttons all over there. These are all touch sensitive. So when you touch one of these, like even when you're driving, the indicator on what you're actually touching pops up on the heads up display. So it gives you an indicator of what's showing. We'll show you the B-roll of that later on. But it kind of feels like the click wheel on the older iPods. So that's something weird. But anyways, now here in the middle, you have your electronic parking brake, auto brake hold, stability control, and your transmission control right here. Now, how you work the transmission of the RZ is quite different compared to a lot of other EVs. Of course, you have to put it in P, you press the button right there. But this right here, this is not a button. Instead, what happens is this ring moves down like that. So right now, when I did that, I put it into neutral. And then if I do that again, if I press it down and then rotate it left, reverse comes on. And as you can see, it does have a nice 360 camera with a fisheye effect right there, sensors and stuff all around. And then if I put it into D, there you go. Well, the front pops up. Now let's bring that down. So that is how you work the actual drive, not transmission, the drive system of the vehicle. Now down here, we have a wireless charging pad, which is seems to be allergic to my phone. But some of the other guys keeps working. Mine just keeps vibrating. Is not working well. This one does have wireless Apple CarPlay and wired Android Auto. My cable's not there. So for wireless Apple CarPlay, you can just connect to it. For us, Android people, we're not gonna have to use the wiring to be able to connect. And by the way, there are no USB-A ports here, just USB-C. So right there, when we press that, let me go here. There you go. There's your Android Auto right there, which is very nice on this big screen. It looks very crisp, very, very clear, which is cool. Now, your AC controls are dual zone climate control is right here. It does have cooling for the front seats. So there, try that, there, cooling. And then it also has heating for all 4 seats. The person in the middle won't have it, but the one on either side will. Temperature controls can be set independently right here. So right now I have it, where's that sync button? There you go. You can sync it right there. I like what they did with this screen actually. It's very, very nice. I also mentioned that the 360 camera, it does have certain different kinds of views. You can even see through, it'll generate a see-through view like this one. So you can place your car more accurately when you're parking. So out of the camera views, let's go up here. So you have the rear view mirror here. I think it's supposed to be a digital, or it has a screen right there, but I haven't gotten it to work yet, maybe at night later on. Here, sunglass holder, I have my glasses up there. Let me close that up. But what's really unique here is this. Now, it does have a glass roof, but it doesn't have any sunshades that actually retract. What Lexus did is something straight out of, C-SPAN spy books, because you press this, there you go. It's an electrochromic glass roof, meaning it passes a charge in here that I guess charges up some of the, whatever is in there, and then it causes it to, give you privacy if you want. Very, very different, very unique. So it's really nice what Lexus did with the interior of the RZ. But there are a few things that are kind of odd. For one, for an EV, it has a big chunky thing like right here. They didn't go for a, because you don't need to make space for a transmission anymore. There is no transmission. So you can actually keep the floor down flat, but Lexus didn't do that. Instead, you have a 2-tier design right there. Actually, that's something we've seen with Lexus with this vehicle. They changed up a lot of things to be able to make it, I guess unique. Because for one, if you want to check your license, your registration, and your manual, well, notice there's no glove compartment there. This is the first car or truck or whatever, anything that I've driven that doesn't have a glove compartment there, which is really different. Instead, you get a compartment here, which opens up to the left or to the right. It's pretty spacious, but yeah, that's pretty much all you get. There's not much storage all around apart from under here, so yeah, keep that in mind. Anyways, enough talk. Let's go out and drive it and talk some more. Now, Lexus is one of the leaders, if not the outright leader, in the luxury sector in the Philippines when it comes to electrified vehicles. But this is their first full electric vehicle. I mean, they've had a lot of hybrids before. I think one of the first ones would have been the CT200H. I remember driving that. I was still, new in this business a long time ago when it was new. And I remarked that it felt more like a, glorified Prius. Now, this one, you can clearly see the progress. I mean, we can't really compare it to a CT200H. It's a totally different vehicle. But this one, you can kind of feel how they've progressed throughout the years when it comes to basically tuning the suspension to be a lot better, particularly when dealing with heavy, vehicles like hybrids and also EVs, because in an EV, you may not have an engine, but you do have a big battery pack right underneath the floor. So that is something they've managed here. And the ride, I actually really like it. I mean, I was kind of, when they first brought it to me, I looked at the wheels, and they're pretty big. I looked at, how Lexus has felt, with the hybrids before. And I expected a harsh ride, or at least, harsher than you would normally find in a Lexus. And of course, a Lexus ride is really, really good. But this one, it's actually nice. You drive it on EDSA, it manages the terrain. You can't really call it road. It's you can kind of call EDSA terrain in many ways, because a lot of parts of this road are very, very rough, are very bumpy, potholes, cat's eyes, all kinds of stuff. You name it, you'll probably find it here. And when you drive it on this kind of surface, it's perfectly fine. And even with these kinds of wheels, the large wheels, it's actually doing very, very well. But the most remarkable part of all is what we always expect out of a Lexus: silence. Because if they can tune an internal combustion engine to be as quiet and as unintrusive as possible for us in the cabin, well, imagine what they can do with a fully electric vehicle. I really like what they did with the interior of the vehicle. Now, it's not old school Lexus, with all the wood and all that. It's proper techie Lexus, meaning for a younger customer base, and that's really what they're going for here. They're not going for your daddy's daddy's Lexus, or someone moving up from something like a Camry or a Land Cruiser. This is meant for a new generation of Lexus customer, and someone who likes technology, like I said, with the Android Auto and this huge 14-inch screen right here dominating the middle of the dashboard. So from that mindset, it's actually really nice. But there are, of course, a couple things that I think they can improve on. For instance, the screen here for the driver display, it's kind of, you can see the border of the actual screen, which is kind of odd. They didn't go for an edge-to-edge kind of style or something a bit wider like you would see in, say, the Audis or the BMWs. So they could have done better with that because they already had a big screen here, so why not do it here? But still, driving it around here, there's the road noise, or the lack of the road noise that you would normally find in a Lexus. The smooth ride, this is asphalt, but it can be fairly bumpy, and this one, managing it very, very well. It feels very gentle when you're driving it around like this. And of course, being the electric, well, you've got power and torque at your command. Yeah, that's really the thing with electric vehicles, the torque on demand, basically. It's more instant than your instant noodles. Right, so couple qualms. For one, the range. Now, the range, I think the claimed range is like 400 something. I'll double check again. But even when the charge was full, it was around 300, like low 300, like 306, something like that. And right now, this power meter, the actual charge state of the battery, it has so many hash marks, probably 20 hash marks on it. It's lost about 2 of those hash marks when it comes to the actual percentage. So I'm guessing there's 90% left, more or less. And the range is reading about 281, which when you look at what it's supposed to be, it seems a bit significantly less. So maybe because this car is being driven around a lot in the city, which is why the range is a bit low. But in any case, it's actually still plenty for the kind of driving that we would normally do with this vehicle. But yeah, I kind of hope that it would have a bit more on the clock, given that it is the biggest concern when it comes to EVs, which is the actual range of the vehicle. When you drive around and let's say you approach a vehicle and then you try to come to a stop, the 360 camera system and the sensors will switch right over here, and it was kind of distracting the first time I drove this around. I was like, I don't need it to come on all the time whenever I approach another vehicle. I mean, I can, my as a driver, you should be able to estimate that no problem and work it fine. And this one, it's kind of like a paranoid driving instructor kind of thing. Oh, no, you're getting too close. You're getting too close. Like, yeah, I know. I'm managing the distance very, very well. So there is that. So it is kind of annoying, and I think I got it mostly off. So it's no longer coming on. I mean, you can see it from this camera, so it's not really coming on as much anymore. The other thing is the heads-up display. Now, it's fine. It has all the information, speed, all that stuff. But whenever my hand, let's say, drifts to here, you won't be able, I'll try to show it to you with a B-roll or something. But when your hand tries to go over the buttons here, the heads-up display will display where your finger is or hand is on top of. And it's distracting because sometimes you don't really want to have your hand on the 10 and 2 and 9 and 3. Sometimes you just want to kind of chill and do that, and it comes on there. It's distracting. So that's just one of a preference thing. But otherwise, it's a great vehicle to drive around. And it's good that Lexus has finally gotten into the EV trend, because they've been doing hybrids for too long. If anything, sometimes when we try out their hybrids, it's almost too normal. and sometimes it also feels dated compared to the other newer hybrids around. But one of the things that I would really criticize in the RZ is not so much the car, but the mindset that they had going into that. Let's go back to the warehouse, so I'll tell you all about it. The only real drawback that I found with the Lexus RZ is not really the car itself. A lot of the things I felt in here that I noticed are just effects, indicators of something else. And by that, I mean the mindset. Now, when it comes to working with EVs and what we've noticed from a lot of other automakers, like for example, Hyundai with the Ioniq 5, Lexus didn't seem to embrace the same kind of mentality they had when they were designing, engineering that vehicle. And what I mean is that when you work with an EV, you're no longer constrained by things like having exhaust piping, because you can have the battery underneath and it gives you a pretty flat floor plan, something you're going to be able to work around with if you understand how architecture works, or even how to configure a condo to your liking. You have an open floor plan to be able to work with. That's what an EV gives you. But for some reason, Lexus didn't do that. When it comes to the front, when it comes to the dashboard and the console here, the way they did it, it's still very, very conventional. Even with the way they did the front and the trunk, or the cargo area. Because if you notice, when I open the hood here, you see a lot of stuff there that you can't put a front trunk in it for a spare tire, which is kind of an eyesore over there in the back. I think Lexus could have gone all in with the EV architecture to be able to address these issues right from the start of their development, but for some reason they didn't, so hopefully they can do that for their other EVs in the future. Now, does it detract from the experience of the vehicle? Well, absolutely not. Driving it around, it is still very much a new generation Lexus. It's not going to be like the Lexus of your daddy or of your grandpa, where it's super, super quiet. I mean, it is super quiet, but this is meant for younger customers, probably younger than me, who can appreciate the technology, the benefits of EV driving. And when it comes to the price, well, it's kind of hard to argue, because this is under 5 million, 4.8 million thereabouts. And when you factor in the technology that you get in it, the fact that it's an EV and a very, very nice one, well, it's actually a good thing. This is Vince of AutoIndustriya.com. Let me know in the comments below if you agree with my assessment of the Lexus RZ. See you in the next one.